What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Foxy Red YouTube channel. So I've been having some camera issues, wasn't able to put together the video I thought I could with doing this rear suspension work, and was able to get some of the stuff for the radio relocation, and I'm going to put some of that together and you'll see that here soon. But what we got going on is I had a suspension setup that was bottoming out anytime I hit a bump, and so as a guaranteed fix, I decided to go back with, factory original suspension, springs, shocks, whatnot. Well, I put them on the car and put the car on the ground, and I have like this much space between the tire and the wheel, and honestly, I can't take it. I'm trying to do this on a budget. I don't want to go spend $700-800 on coilovers. So, what we're going to do today is we're going to take it all back apart, and I'm going to cut one coil out of the springs. I know it's frowned upon, but they were cheap, so I'm really not hurting anything. So before I show you that, I want to show you what kind of stuff we were working with. I had springs that were basically like I could compress them by hand. Shocks. I've had this shock out of this car for a week, and I compressed it with one finger. And let's see what it looks like. Wow. Yeah, that is junk. So we'll just try to get all this put back together and put it on the ground, and hopefully it looks like it's supposed to look. I don't know if it's from it sitting forward or just not used to not having slick tires on the back, but I took it out for a drive, and man, I banged into second gear and I was facing the cornfield. So I didn't crash, but I had to grab the wheel pretty hard to keep it from going over there. So this car is pretty fun, but I'm trying to make it a little bit more safe. Some of the stuff they did was just super unsafe, and they just, I guess, had planned to only run it at the drag strip, but yet still has a full interior, all brand new radio and sound system. Just kind of odd that they would do all that, but not worry about wiring or brakes. Like the front brakes on this car when I got it was like there was nothing left. They were just driving it with no brakes, basically. So with the SN95 spindles on the front now, I put SN95 brakes on it, but we could change it to Cobra brakes, newer Cobra brakes, stuff like that. Or if we were even getting crazier, I think you can do like CTSV brakes, Brembos from certain years. It is getting kind of annoying every time I want to change anything on the rear end. I have to take the exhaust completely off because they ran it under the axle. And when you can't lower the axle because the exhaust is in the way. So when you try to lower the axle, it would just hit the exhaust, which is held on by two hangers. And then you would just be putting all the weight of the axle on the exhaust on the hangers. So you have to take the whole exhaust off at the mid pipe, and then you can start doing your work on it. It's getting pretty ridiculous. All right, so we got them back out. Kind of a pain in the ass. A little bit easier than when I put them in. I definitely used ratchet straps when I put them in. Probably don't want to do that either, but it worked. So if you compare these, let me grab one of the original ones. If you compare them, the original ones were much lighter, which is kind of strange, but you can see they're about one coil different. So these being worn out, they're going to give a lot more. The car is going to sag, but the ride height was right for these control arms that it has in here. So if I'm correct if I take out one of these bottom coils, considering it seems almost like they've doubled up at the bottom on this one because of the much wider springs on these than there are on these. Now, you would like to also think, well, what if those factory ones were cut? Well, they both have shiny painted ends on them. So you wouldn't think so, but I mean, I guess it's just as possible as anything else. So what we're going to do, we're going to mark them. I'm going to say right underneath of where this one is, or where this one ends, and that's what we're going to do. We're going to cut one coil straight out of it, maybe a little behind it. So I don't have to move the camera and change all that stuff. I'm going to take this over to the bench and cut it. When I get done cutting it, I'll bring it back and I'll show you what it looks like. All right, so what I've realized here is you can't cut these springs safely because the way that the bottom of them is flat. So I did some research, obviously, before I went and cut anything because I didn't want to do something that was going to be potentially dangerous. So they said if the spring sits up straight when you set it on the back, then that means you have basically like a flat base. And if you were to cut one of these coils out, you would have like an angled base. And it has to sit up in a perch up in the back of the car. It has to sit flat. So these springs aren't going to work for lowering the car in any way. So just as a temporary, let's see what it looks like or how it rides, I'm going to take the old springs and then I'm going to install new spring perches, or sorry, not spring perches, but spring isolators. And with these new shocks, and let's see how that does. At least it won't be sticking up in the air like a crazy person. So let's see how that works, and I'm gonna go ahead and grab those, and I'm going to start getting them ready to put in the car, and we'll go from there. Okay, so before I put these in here, I'm gonna show you kind of my thought process on this. So the reason why I bought these originally was thinking, well, one, the car didn't have any in them, which a lot of people said, does your car creak and pop, when you're turning or coming over bumps or whatever? And it does, and not having these spring isolators could be why. My only issue is on these Megabyte Junior lower control arms, these are just a little bit too skinny, I guess you could say. The diameter of the inner diameter of them is not quite big enough, and it won't slide over that edge of that. So I considered cutting this to kind of make it like an open end, so that way when it would slide over there, and that's probably what I'm going to have to do. So we'll do that, and like I said, these will go just inside of here. But if you look, I don't know if you can see from there, I'll bring them in here. If you add that and that, that's about 5/8 of an inch. So, I mean, with the shocks being brand new and these being brand new, maybe that'll be enough. So we'll find out. Hopefully I can get this all to work in here, and we set it down, it'll look right, it'll work right. All right, so I was able to cut those, put those on there, and then these sit up in here like this. I really couldn't believe just how much more of a lift that's going to put in there. I mean, it might honestly be enough. It might be perfect. My luck, it won't be, but I mean, shit, I have to try. So I'll try to get these back up in here. These were actually harder to get out than the new ones. I don't know why, but they're probably going to be harder now because they are much different. So I'm going to have to probably do this stupid method with a So these are probably going to be just as hard to put in as the other ones were. So instead of you sitting here and listening to me struggle, I'll speed it up and you can watch me struggle and super fast forward. Well, I ended up fighting with them quite a bit. And the craziest part is I had to drop kick them into place, which works for me, but it was a little bit, crazy, but it worked. Now the only thing left to do is make sure that they're aligned, make sure that the spring is sitting in its isolator the same as it is on the other side, and then I'm gonna raise up the rear end a little bit and put the shocks back in. So here we go. Why isn't Wilson helping any? You have not helped at all. All you've done is just sit and watch. But that's pretty much all he does anyway. So yeah, better stretch it out. You've been putting in a lot of work. Okay, so set it back down, and honestly, I think it's exactly where I want it. I got enough room to where these big giant tires that I put on here aren't going to hit the fender, hopefully. And with a minor adjustment on the front, I can pretty much have it sitting level. I did hear a pop come from the spring on the driver's side as I was letting it down, so I got to investigate and see, what's going on there, see if anything slipped or moved or maybe something just set into place better. But yeah, I think it looks pretty good. I hate that I bought springs if I can, use these old ones and they're going to work just fine. But I'm pretty sure that 5/8 of an inch and those new shocks are going to be the fix for the issue I was having. Before, I could sit in the car and it would literally just sit on the tire. So this new setup I think is going to work. I didn't put the exhaust back on because it's the hardest part, honestly, and because you need like 10-foot long arms to hold everything where it's supposed to be, and so I figured I'm not going to do that until I know for sure this is the way we're going to go with it. So I think that's the way I'm going to roll with it after I check it out, make sure that there's nothing, weird going on or whatever. But yeah, I'm pretty happy with it. I think this is the look I was going for, as opposed to the way it was before. Now, don't get me wrong, I wish that it was, almost like tuck and tire, because that looks the best, but you can't turn, can't take off, can't do anything without the tire hitting, and brand new tires, you don't want to ruin a brand new tire on a fender. So all right, I think that's going to work. I'm going to jack it back up, check it out, and throw this exhaust back on. So I'll see you after. So I think that's going to work. Had to fight with the exhaust some to get it decent looking. It's just temporary, so it's not really going to look great until I get it redone. But I think that this is exactly what I needed. This much wheel gap. I know it's going to settle a little bit, but with these new shocks, it should be okay the way that is. Um, Got to go in for an alignment this week, so I'm just really stressing trying to get it like how I want it, for a while at least, because I don't want to go get an alignment and then change everything in 2 weeks and have to get another alignment, because they're kind of expensive just to take it to the shop to get it aligned. So I'm gonna jump up and down on the door real quick, or door jam, or whatever you want to say, so that way I can see if it's, you know, seemingly going to hit the tire when I hit bumps and whatnot. I don't think it will, but I'm going to try to find out anyways. Well, I think that ought to do it. Got the car set up the way I kind of want it. You're going to have a little bit of a difference between the front and the back. We're at about 28 inches of height in the back and 25 in the front. A lot of that has to do with the fact this is a 40 profile tire with a 295, and that's a 35 profile tire with a 275. So it's going to be a little different. Plus, that the rear end is just going to sit a little bit higher the way I have it set up. I thought about raising the front a little bit, but they're kind of wacky coilovers, and it seems like the higher I go with them, the ride quality is not as well. You think it'd be the opposite, but it's not. So that's it. Thank you guys for watching so much. Hopefully I can do better for you next time. I'll keep learning. I'll keep working at this. And if you have any tips or suggestions, put it in the comments. If you don't mind to like the video and subscribe, it'd help me out a lot. Until next time, thanks guys.